All right. So I am going to turn this over to Dave Williams to introduce past district governor Dave McCoy, who's going to give our program today.
Thank you very much. All of us have a lot of good reasons to be in the Rotary Club. Fellowship that'll come again, good food, local projects. There's probably none better than the Rotary Foundation, which literally is probably the best foundation in the world. Nobody knows about it better than past District Governor Dave McCoy from High Point. Dave is high tech for the district, and I consider him Mr. Rotarian for the district. I'll call him off and on for advice and always get it good. We've had him before. Look forward to having him again. And Dave, I thank you for coming.
Well, it's great to be with you, and I'm going to pop up into screen share, and it is super to be with you all. I have one regret. I wish it was live, but this is second best. You know, we've been able to work around our difficulties with the technology of Zoom, and when I think back on some of the things that have already occurred with Rotary, they did their international convention by Zoom. They've done a lot of zone seminars by Zoom. And of course, we're all doing our Rotary Club by Zoom. And I think coming up in March, the PETS, President-elect training, will also be done by Zoom. So it's a different world. So, but it is great to be with you, and with the opportunity of talking with you about my favorite subject, and that's the Rotary Foundation. I think David hit it right on the spot when he said it is the best foundation in the world, and I truly believe that. The Rotary Foundation allows us to do things that we would not be able to do as an organization in helping others in our community and around the world. Doing good in the world, total program rewards. My screen, okay, I've moved. $307 million last year went out to program grants around the world. This is absolutely phenomenal. And here's sort of a breakdown of contributions that came in and the total contributions that came in. All right, annual fund is broken down into the annual fund, which is 123 million. And just as a reminder, the annual fund at the end of 3 years, the district gets back 50% of the dollars that were contributed 3 years hence or 3 years ago. So this enables the district and likewise the clubs to get involved in important local projects. The second area there is the endowment fund. This is now called the endowment fund. It was called previously the permanent fund. This is the fund where only the interest is spent. And if you're a bequest society member, a benefactor, or just want to contribute to the endowment fund, that fund stays there. Nothing happens with the principal, just the interest is spent. Then you see the next category there, Polio Plus. Last year, $132.9 million was put into the polio eradication effort. And as you know, and I'll go into a little bit more detail in a bit, but we just have been, we're able to declare Nigeria polio free. That means that they actually had their last case of polio 3 years ago, but you have to be 3 years polio free of the live virus to be considered polio free. And then the other category of 43 million, and then projected increases to the endowment fund of 52.8 million. And so we had a total outright contribution level of $340 million. And of that, we spent 307 million. Now, this past year was a little bit unusual, and it really put a crimp on the foundation with the pandemic. We all were recipients, and the Thomasville Club was no exception, of a grant that past District Governor Randy Perkins was able to get. He actually applied for it twice, and the second time he was able to get it. And those funds were then distributed to the club on a matching basis for a COVID response. And that was well needed and well deserved, but it did put a strain on the reserves of the foundation. Back in 2013, Rotary Foundation instituted a new program called Future Vision. Future Vision was a 3-year study. District 7690 was one of the districts involved in the debugging of the new system, and the primary focus of this is to work with areas of focus, and there are 6 areas of focus. And I think if you look at this list, there are not many grants and not many projects that we get involved with that would not fit into at least one of those 6 areas of focus. This has been heralded by all kinds of many organizations who really review and look at the efficiency and the involvement of foundations. Notice there that disease prevention and treatment gave 729 grants last year, and the total grants was 59.4 million. But you can see the breakdown of where the grants went. And now, one thing that is very important in the Future Vision project or program, I can't begin to tell you how many water wells Rotary was digging before 2013. Great, wonderful, greatly needed. The problem was when Rotary left, excuse me for that phone. Excuse me. The wells would fill in. They weren't being maintained. Under the Future Vision program, sustainability was critical. And the trustees of the Rotary Foundation, when they were reviewing grants, they looked particularly hard at the sustainability factor. And if it wasn't sustainable, chances are you weren't going to get the grant unless it was rewritten to focus on keeping this, the work alive and well. So those are the 6 areas. Annual total raised by Rotarians in the 2019-20, $408 million. That is substantial. And here is a breakdown of the impact of the foundation. The program awards constitute and operation constitute 91%. And I don't think when you look at it and look at other foundations that you can find a foundation that has this kind of record. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail with Charity Navigator in a bit. Here is a breakdown of the 6 areas of focus. And you look at down on the lower right-hand side, water and sanitation. There were 189 grants at 15.3 million. Disease and prevention, I had mentioned earlier that disease and prevention had the largest number of grants, 729 grants at $59.4 million. It's pretty sizable and impactful. Fighting polio. I mentioned earlier that we now are down to 2 countries. Polio and Rotary started back in 1985 with the first campaign to raise money for polio. It was in 1988 that the first teams started going out on what is called National Immunization Days, where Rotarians from around the world would go into countries, organize themselves for 6 days. On the 7th day, they would go out and immunize hundreds of thousands of children. One of the biggest operations was in India, and it took a while, but India is now polio free and has been for about the last 7 or 8 years. But we still have national immunization days going on in India. Why? Polio is only one airplane ride away from starting back up in a country. So we have to continually put the efforts forward to make sure that babies are immunized against polio. In our country, if you want to come in from another country, you have to be vaccinated for polio, along with a lot of other diseases. Not so in a lot of countries. You can go freely back and forth from one country to another. And we've had last year some spurts, not an epidemic, but clusters of polio cases, even in India, where somebody came in from either Pakistan or Afghanistan or Nigeria at the time, primarily Pakistan and Afghanistan, who were infected with polio. And it just, so they have to really monitor this all the time. Here is a graphic illustration of 1988 when we started the polio effort. Those areas in that light purple were the epidemic countries. You don't see many that weren't. And here's where we are today. It's been a long haul. It has not been easy, but with the help of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we have made a lot of progress. The Gates Foundation is still doing a 2-for-1 match. They are in this for the long haul, just as Rotary is, and we cannot give up, because if we do, or if the Gates Foundation does, polio is going to come back with a vengeance, probably more severe than it was when we started. I had the opportunity about 6 years ago to represent Zone 33 on a tour of the CDC in Atlanta. And all throughout that tour, they were doing nothing but praising Rotary and the Rotary Foundation for what we were doing, not only with money, but with boots on the ground. And the only country that we were not permitted to do anything in was Pakistan. Some of you might remember articles in the paper where volunteers who were working to inoculate children were being murdered. And CDC and Rotary International would not allow Rotarians to go in and supply the actual vaccine. But what we did do there was in direct help with the CDC by monitoring laboratories. If a communicable disease such as polio was reported to a lab, immediately in real time, that information got back to the CDC, and they could set up procedures and policies and get groups in there to try to get these diseases under control. That's where we were involved with Pakistan. Here's what it costs. The average cost to fully protect a child against polio is $3. Children vaccinated in up to 40 countries every year, 400 million, and with a total cost of 100 million. This is something that we're not, a lot of us are not really totally aware of, but Rotary also has been involved in, for a number of years, in peace building. And District 7690 is a peace building district. That means that we support the efforts of the peace initiative very strongly with dollars and action. There are a few countries or a few universities around the world. There are 5 in University of Bradford, another one in Sweden, Thailand, Australia, etc. What this is a master's program, and students who want to go on and then advance their education in peace building will apply to these colleges and universities. Districts support this. Note, in the United States, out of the 5, the United States has 2 in the state of North Carolina, very close together, Duke University and the University of North Carolina. Now, my favorite comment is if those 2 can get along well, there's hope for the program. And you'll see in this slide, here are the folks, here are the students who go on to apply, and that has to be approved by the district. The district actually, the districts are actually the ones that interview these students, and they're the ones that say, okay, you can go into the program, because it is basically paid for by Rotary International. So you have non-governmental organizations, and that represents 36% of the folks that enter the program. Government agencies are 15%. So combined non-government, government agencies, you're looking at 51% of the students that go into this peace building program. That's where they're coming from. And what do they do afterwards? They go into areas of government and non-governmental agencies. They're involved in education, academics, UN agencies, law and law enforcement. They have the zone has a seminar every May where you have an opportunity to hear the students who are going through the Duke and University of North Carolina program. And if you ever want to be totally blown off your feet, listen to some of these students. They are absolutely phenomenal. Then we go into the legacy program, We're building the Rotary Foundation endowment 25 by 2025 by 2025. Currently, we have 500 million in the fund, and the goal is combined total is 1.3 billion. Basically what we want is to build the program, to build that permanent fund up to 1.25 billion. And so that's where we are on that. Now I want to go into something that is a favorite subject of mine, and something that I have been involved with, I guess, with the Rotary Foundation for about the last 7 or 8 years. And it's dear to my heart, as I said. With all the things, good things that the foundation does, it's important that we support the foundation so that the work we do can continue and expand. And from a humble beginning, back in 1917 at the Atlanta Rotary International Convention, when outgoing RI President Arch Klump proposed setting up a foundation, or an endowment as it was called then, for the purpose of doing good in the world. Now, we've all heard that. That one idea and an initial investment or contribution of $26.50 set in motion a powerful force that has transformed millions of lives around the globe. You have heard me say more than once that the reason that makes Rotary unique among all service organizations is the Rotary Foundation. It enables us to do the good things that we do in our communities and around the world. Rotarians are effective in the work we do because it not only involves the grants, but also involves Rotarians. Grants always encompass Rotarians working with others, the folks who were giving the money and those at the other end receiving the money, working together. And that it really helps focus and make sure that the money is being spent properly. In 1998, past district governor Wayne Cusick from District 5340 in California proposed creating a program to provide recognition and encouragement for Rotarians who contribute $1,000 or more to the Rotary Foundation. He administered and tested this program in his district. Through his efforts and those of his wife, Leanne, news spread to other districts about the program, and which he called the Paul Harris Society. In 2013-14, the trustees adopted the Paul Harris Society as an official recognition program. Since then, the Paul Harris Society has more than doubled. Now, this is from 2013. It has more than doubled in its membership. Although fewer than 2% of the Rotarians are society members, they gave more than $30 million to the Rotary Foundation in 2018 and 19, accounting for more than 16% of the total foundation giving. This group promises to have a tremendous impact on the Rotary Foundation's future as they continue to give and invite others to join. The Rotary Foundation is stronger now and will be even more so in the future thanks to Wayne's vision and dedication. Today, there are 25,000 members in 145 countries. Now, what I'm particularly proud of, because our district has really stepped up to the plate and realizing the power of the foundation, our district is currently has 185 Paul Harris Society members, with 19 new, in fact, got one this morning, members this year. We are number 3 in the Rotary zone, comprising 17 districts from Pennsylvania to the South Carolina-Georgia border. And we are number 16 in the world of 534 districts. Now, I joined the Paul Harris Society a few years before it became an official program of the Rotary International in 2013. And when I joined, for me, it was really an easy decision. I knew of the extraordinary good work of the Rotary Foundation and wanted to support it in a bigger way. And the foundation allows us, as I've said before, to do the extraordinary work we do globally and in our communities. And that's what sets us apart. I felt convinced that I wanted my money to go where it would do the most good, to folks that I probably would never see and who would not know that I had given. You know, all of the contributions to the foundation make a huge difference in what we are able to accomplish as an organization. But I like to think the Paul Harris Society givers as being the pace setters. They're the ones that are really stepping up and having a tremendous impact. I also analyze the effectiveness and good stewardship of donations. Since 2008, the foundation has consistently received a top 4-star rating with Charity Navigator. In that rating, there are 2 areas of measurement that go into that rating: financial and accountability. Now, here is something that is very rare with Charity Navigator. In both those 2 areas, the Rotary Foundation receives a full 100% rating. That is very, very unique and rare. They are also 3rd on the list of top 10 charities that everyone has heard of. And in that list of 10, there are only 4 that have a full score of 100. And I'd like to recognize now the 12 members of the Thomasville Rotary Club, and that is a huge number, and I certainly appreciate those in the Thomasville Club who are members. And I'd like to read the club members who are part of that pace setter group: Christian Brandeberry, Kim Cecil, Joe Hedgepath, Wayne Herrick, Sonny Coons, Carl Milgren, Jed Orman, Larry Perdue, Elaine Raybon, Deb Saint Singh, Wayne Underwood, and David Williams. There are a number of ways. As I mentioned, the commitment is $1,000 or more a year, and there are a number of ways of securing or making that commitment. A lot of folks now are doing RI Direct, and RI Direct is where you set up a credit card, or you can even do a bank draft with Rotary International, and they either do it on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, or an annual basis. And it's $85 a month that can be charged to your credit card or withdrawn from your bank account. It also can be done through the club. And I think, David, a lot of yours, I think, are being done through dues billing, but some of your members are also on RI Direct. It is very flexible. I can work with, in fact, I've become rather creative in ways of handling it. So if there is a desire, I probably can find a way to make it work. And one of the ways now that is not, I'm seeing more of it. I think I've got 5 people now of making the commitment that is growing in popularity is the taking some of your required minimum distribution through your retirement. This, of course, is the 70 and a half to, and now I think the new limit or age is 72. But taking your $1,000 out of your required minimum distribution and sending that on in, the advantage there is it doesn't count as income when you do that. As I said, I think I've got 5 people now in doing it. I do request that if somebody is interested in doing that, to please work with me, because it's got to be handled very carefully, or the foundation or Rotary International has a tendency to not give credit to it gets very confusing, but it can be worked out. And so with that, if you're interested, I would love to talk to you further about the Paul Harris Society. The wonderful work of the Rotary Foundation, and if you're interested in joining the Paul Harris Society, I would be very glad to talk to you about it. So I want to thank you for having me today, and a big thank you for the support of the Thomasville Rotary Club to our foundation. And so with that, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Thank you so much, Dave McCoy. Appreciate the message. And it's amazing that the Foundation for Rotary International raised over 400 million and gave away over 300 million last year. It's just, a staggering amount of money that the Rotary Foundation funnels from individual members and others through to good causes in their area of focus. So if anybody has a question for David, if you will unmute yourselves so that he can hear you.
I don't have a question, but I would like to make a comment. First of all, Dave, thanks a lot. Dave knows a lot about the foundation. We've been extremely supportive as a club for years. At the last accounting I had, we had only 13 who had not paid their sustaining this year. Don't feel like you have to do the $1,000. We are certainly appreciative for everybody giving at least $1,000. We all do that, so we were down to just 13 people. We always meet our goal. We'll also meet our polio goal, so you'll hear more about that. But foundation's number one in my book too, and I appreciate Dave coming.
You brought up a very important point, David, that I did not bring up. The Paul Harris Society contribution can go one of 3 areas. One is the annual fund, which, as I mentioned, after 3 years, 50% of that comes back. The other area is polio. And there, with the polio contributions, 100% of the money that is contributed for polio goes to the effort. There is no administrative expenses coming out of polio contributions to run the program. So, and the third area is an approved global grant, which gets a little tricky, but most of the folks that are in the society in our district are doing the annual fund. Would say probably 80% are doing annual fund. The other 20 are doing polio.
Okay. Again, thank you, David. Any other questions or comments? And again, as David Williams mentioned, everybody in our club is a 100% Paul Harris sustaining member, which means they give at least $100 a year. Most have already given that money for the year. There are a few that, have not. Those sometimes trickle in. Also, this ties in really nicely to our, the polio promise. So if you're doing your sustaining, not quite ready to commit to Paul Harris Society yet, the polio promise is another way to give additional funds that go directly to the eradication of polio. So Kim sent that information out a couple weeks ago. I failed to mention it last week, but would encourage, any of those who are interested. It's basically a commitment of $100 a year until polio is eradicated. That is an additional $100 over and above the 100 in sustaining that you already do. So again, anybody with questions, and I apologize, I can't see the entire panel of pictures, so you'll have to speak up if you have a question. Okay, I am not seeing any. So again, David, thank you for being with us today.
Good to
Greatly
be here.
appreciate it. Do we have any